Hi, Kate.
Hi, Beth.
It's nice to see you today.
Good to see you too. Wonderful. I still keep thinking about the way we met,
Me too.
which I love. Why don't you tell me again what happened?
Okay, well, of course, there's the very first time that we met when we didn't meet, which was virtually. And
Hmm.
of course, my mom um, saw The Long Way Home in the movie theater. When was that? 96, 1996? Is that right?
Around probably 97, 98, I think. Yeah.
1998. Okay. And that's right, because it was a year after the 50th reunion. and and she saw herself at the Wilmette Theater, or she saw the film at the Wilmette Theater where we were living. My parents lived there for 25 years or something, and
Hmm.
and she's watching the movie, and all of a sudden she sees herself on the big screen, and she screamed in the middle of the movie theater, and that was how we discovered that there was this footage of their arrival in America, of the Weber siblings' arrival in America, and how notable it was. Which I'm sure they knew about it maybe back in 1946 when they arrived, but maybe they didn't. I'm not sure. I should ask her that question. But that was the first time we met. Like, oh my gosh, we were all kind of a flutter. And I think even in 1997, 98, none of us were really that internet savvy. Um, so when I was screening Unbroken at River Run in, let's see, this is the spring of 2024. We were
Uh-huh.
invited to the River Run Film Festival, and I
I
was
love
so
that
excited.
festival.
Oh, such a beautiful festival.
Yeah.
And I opened, I was preparing for the festival. Okay, who else is going to be there? And I saw that you were the celebrated honoree that year. And it had never occurred to me to reach out to you before. I don't know why, but when I saw that, I reached out to Mary Dossinger at the festival and I said, "Would you be kind enough to give Kate Amend my email? I would just love to have a conversation with her." And then you did. You emailed me, and then we had that phone call.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary to meet someone who knows somebody in the archival footage. I mean,
Hmm.
must have been incredible. When did you see the film?
Oh my gosh! I think I saw it back then. No, our mom
But
told us
not
about.
with her.
No, I wasn't with her. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, I don't know that we've ever watched it together. I'm in Chicago right now. We should do that this weekend. We have a really special weekend planned with all kinds of things, but we should watch it together. I think that would be really
That's a
nice.
great idea.
And so,
Yeah.
of course, I've seen it several times over the years just because it's of interest to me.
Hmm.
And it never fails. And I have started to see that particular news clip in a handful of other movies as well. But
Hmm.
it just blew us away. Really, really blew us away. And it was also what we used as kind of the key words around that image is how we began our deep dive into our archival research. Like, okay, well, if that existed, then what else exists? And that was
Hmm.
just kind of like the launch pad for all of our research.
Yeah. Hmm.
Do
Well,
you
I mean,
remember how do
go
you
ahead.
remember how the clip came to you?
Well, I didn't have anything really, not much to do with the research. We had good researchers, and it was produced through the Wiesenthal Center.
Hmm.
So they had great archives, and then there was also some in Europe. And anyway, they had access to everything. So I really have seen a lot of Holocaust archival footage. In fact, I think I might have seen all of it.
Yes.
Between that and working on Into the Arms of Strangers and a couple
Hmm.
other films that I've worked on,
Right, of
just
course.
constantly going through the archival, and I think it's incredible, that has been documented, and A lot of it was the Army. I forget the name, but the U.S. Army had a good documentation crew. There were film crews throughout World War.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, we did deep dives with the joint distribution and gosh, I mean, our spreadsheets are massive. So it's hard to remember all the different places, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Um,
really
well,
exciting.
I'm just curious, growing up, how much did you know about your mother's background or
I mean,
family
very,
history?
very, very little. I was 6 years old when I learned that my mom was adopted. And I was the new girl in school. We had moved from downtown Chicago out to Wilmette, so I was the new girl in school in first grade. And then halfway through the year, another girl came to our school in the middle of the year. So she was the new girl. Okay, well,
Mhm.
who's this new girl? And her name was Susan, and she was from Germany, and she was adopted. So I remember coming home from school saying, Mommy, Mommy, there's this new girl in school, because I was proud that I wasn't the new girl anymore. And I said, and she's from Germany and she's adopted. And she said to my brother and me, because we were, having like after school snacks or whatever. And she said, you know somebody who is adopted and you know somebody from Germany. And I'm like, well, who? So she said, well, you have to guess. And I kept guessing my Baba and my Zeta.
Mhm.
I had two great grandparents at the time. I never met my great grandfathers, but I met my great grandmothers. And when I refer to them, this is the family that adopted my mom, but those were my grandparents.
Sure. Yeah.
And finally, my brother, we were guessing, guessing, guessing. Finally, my brother stopped and he said, Mom, it's you. And she said, that's right. And my first reaction was, well, why? Like, didn't your mom want you? And she explained that no, in fact, her mother and father couldn't take care of her, and how lucky she was that my grandma and grandpa adopted her and gave her this really incredible life on the south side of Chicago. She went to private school, she had dance lessons. It was my grandparents couldn't have children, and so they adopted three children. My mom was the first one they adopted. And then I think my uncle came along almost like 8 or 10 years later. And then my aunt came along another 2 years later. But I learned in that after school snack session that she had six other siblings. I didn't learn about the Holocaust per se, we were really too young.
Right.
But that she had six other siblings, and when do I get to meet them? And she said, you will never meet them. And she was really quite emphatic about that.
Hmm.
No, you will never meet them. That's not an option. That's not a possibility. And I think when you're 6 years old, when somebody says no, you really want it a lot more than if somebody said yes. So it
Hmm.
was something in the back of my mind that always just kind of tickled my imagination, such that,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I would always think about it. And then, of course, um, I didn't meet them again. I didn't meet them really until the first time until after their 40th reunion. So after 1986 is when I met them the first time.
Yeah. And when she said you will never meet them, is that was because she was cut off from them?
So we don't really go into this too much into the film, and so I'm happy to share a little bit more of like if we had extended cuts or something. Um, but for a while, so my mom was also placed in foster care, as all of her siblings were. But my mother's foster home was abusive to her, physically abusive. And one day
Mhm.
when she was having a visit with Aunt Ruth, her sister Ruth, she told her what was happening to her, that she was being hit and beaten and
Oh.
also like put into a closet. It was just horrible. It just is
Hmm.
staggering to think that this can happen, but sadly it does. And so Ruth, being the woman with the moxie that she shows herself to be, she
Yeah.
went to the Jewish Children's Bureau of Chicago, where the social workers were that placed them into their foster families, and said, "You've got to get my sister out of there. They're beating her and they're putting her in a closet." And They did. And my grandparents had already approached the Jewish Children's Bureau. They were looking for a child to adopt. And they approached my grandparents, Roz and Josh Spiegel, and said, well, it's not an infant, it's a 6-year-old, but would you consider adopting a 6-year-old? And they met mom and went home and said, we would love to adopt her. So for the longest while, they tried to continue to have visits with her siblings because, of course, the other 6, although they were shockingly in 6 other different foster homes,
Wow.
they did try and stay in touch with each other. Of course, no internet, no cell phones. You're dealing with rotary pay phones and operators and letter writing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the 6 had all stayed in touch with their father back in Germany with Alexander because he couldn't get sponsorship and passage to come over to America. He tried so hard, it took him 10 years. So a lot of letter writing to get together. And so mom would have visits with them and she would come back to my grandparents' home. And I don't know if they were supervised by my grandparents or not, like it doesn't really matter, but she would really, it was very distressing. She would act out and her behavior would get really nasty. And after trying this for, I think, many, many months, it was the Jewish Children's Bureau of Chicago that recommended to my grandparents that in order for mom to really assimilate to her new family, because of course, this was not a foster family now, this was an adoptive family.
Uh-huh.
And the prevailing sentiment at the time in the 1940s was sever ties, she's young, start over. And that's what they did. That's what they did. That was very, very difficult for the siblings. It was devastating for them, quite frankly. Wow. But I think for my mom at such a young age, she probably didn't really know to be devastated. She just knew that she was being taken care of and loved up by her new parents in a way that was helping her grow and thrive in America.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until 40 years then.
It was 40 years later. There were a couple of points of contact over the years.
Uh-huh.
I can probably articulate some of them because it is fascinating.
Yeah.
There was one time when my mother was being given a check for reparations or something, and mom was home. She was married to my dad at the time, so I guess they were visiting my grandparents. I don't know if my brother was born yet or if I was born, but it was like a Sunday afternoon visit, and the doorbell rang, and it was, I believe, Aunt Gertrude and Aunt Judy who said, we have a check for Bela. So that was kind of, a surprise because they tried to be very respectful of the new situation. But mom always kind of felt like she'd look over her, she always felt like she was being followed a little bit because she was. They always knew where she was. Once they reunited, they showed mom a scrapbook of things that they would find out about mom. For example, when people would do wedding announcements in the newspaper back then, they had her wedding announcement in a scrapbook. My mother was a beautiful dancer and was performing around Chicago, and they would have clipping, things like that. So that was one time they saw each other. Another time was when my mom was pregnant. Okay, so I was wrong about that. We weren't born, my parents weren't married, but my mom and dad were dating. And so they were at my grandparents for the afternoon. Okay, now fast forward to my parents are engaged, and in order to get a marriage license, the woman had to go to the doctor's office to get checked out and given an official bill of health to marry a man back in the 60s. Okay, we're not going to talk about politics around that. Kind of horrifying that a woman had to, but that a man didn't. But anyway, she's in the doctor's office in the waiting room. And again, it was Aunt Renee. This time I think it was Aunt Renee and Aunt Gertrude. And they came over to my mom and said, excuse me, would you mind coming to talk with us in the hallway? We have something that we want to share with you. And she said, okay. And so they went out into the hallway and they said, we're your sisters. So that was really pretty incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
They
Wow.
recognized mom and they couldn't let the opportunity pass them by. Um, and I feel like there was another time. Well, of course, we described the time in the movie. I won't describe it right here. That happened on 71st Street on the south side of Chicago from a Chinese restaurant that is quite profound and quite
Yeah.
remarkable. But it was, I love how Gertrude and mom explained the scene of the phone call when they finally did reunite. And that was so incredible that quite literally, so they have that phone call, they hang up. This was in the 1980s, in 1986, and of course, immediately Gertrude calls all five of her siblings to say, "You're not going to believe what just called." And
Oh.
Alphonse, I think it took about 12 hours for Alphonse to get in his car and drive to Chicago. Like he just dropped everything and drove to Chicago, and then
Mm.
they had that 40th reunion, I think that weekend. And Judy flew in. Judy was either living in Iowa or Texas. I'm not sure which one. She had moved away
Mhm.
from Chicago, and they made that reunion happen. And
That's fantastic.
how did Gertrude have the wherewithal to have it filmed? Like
Mm.
it's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh-huh.
I just feel that we're so lucky that we have that footage.
Hmm.
I
And
was down in
you
graduate
just,
school in Florida at the time, and so you see my sister in that footage, and you see my cousin Don in that footage. My cousin Lynn is in that footage, so my generation. I know my
mhm.
brother attended, but he's not in the footage. And I think maybe one or two other second generation offspring attended. But none of us were really invited because it was really for the seven siblings and their spouses to have
Mm.
a pretty intimate experience.
Yeah.
I don't even think my mom told me about that reunion until after the fact. And I often wonder
Wow.
if one of the things, there are many reasons why I made the movie, but I often wonder if I needed to make this movie to put myself at that reunion.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because you're not you're an actor, right? But do you have
Yeah,
a filmmaking background, or was this like, no, I'm going to make this film?
I mean, I had circled around the idea of exploring my mother's legacy and really to explore Lena. When people ask you that question, like, who in history would you like to have lunch with or dinner with?
Uh-huh.
And I would often say Queen Elizabeth because I'm just fascinated by her
Me
reign
too.
and Mary of Scotland, and I've loved playing those roles in theater. Um, but the older I got, the more I would think, oh boy, would I love to meet Lena. And so in my 30s, I started to kind of write some theater pieces around it. I tried to write a one person play and then I wrote a multi person play. And I tried to explore just these ideas of if I met her, what would it be like? But the plays, I developed them at New York Theater. Or no, I developed them at the Barrow Group Theater Company in New York City. That was my theater company that I was a part of. Um, I trained there. I took playwriting classes there and directing classes and acting classes, and I was on the board of the Barra Group. And it really was one of those. I felt that what I wrote was very just self therapeutic. It really wasn't for anybody else. It
Hmm.
just feel like it had legs. And that's the purpose of workshopping material, right?
Yeah.
So I put it in a drawer, and then I went back to graduate school when my kids went to college because I thought that I wanted to be an academic. As an actor, I had been working here and there over the years. I've had some amazing contracts and some not so amazing contracts, but I just wanted more theater in my life than I was having. And I wanted more theater with integrity than I was currently experiencing. So I decided to go back to graduate school, A, to kind of like learn about what's everybody doing right now. Everyone seems to be making their own content, and TikTok was all the rage, and I just don't know anything about that stuff. And I went back to I was accepted into a cohort at UCLA in the theater program as an actor. And my goal was to graduate with a degree so I could teach anywhere. I mean, when I took my kids on their college tours and I went to all of these colleges all over the country, I'm like, wow, this is where the money is. Like they have these beautiful theaters and they have these beautiful productions, and there are so many resources, and the libraries are so great, and you have a team of lighting designers and set designers. I said, I don't need Hollywood so much. I just need to be part of a community that's making great theater and storytelling. So I was really thrilled to get this degree get my MFA, but Providence had a different plan. And in between my second and third year of graduate school, that's when Mom decided that she wanted to go back to Germany for the first time. Now, back up a little bit, because also when my kids went off to college is when I called my Uncle Alphonse, who I knew had been doing a lot of research in Germany to make the application for Arthur and Paula Schmidt, the heroes of our story, to be admitted and honored in the Gardens of the Righteous at Yad Vashem. So I called him one day and I said, I want to go. Next time you go to Germany, I'd like to go with you. May I? And he said, yes. And so we actually had a plan, and we had a month. We hadn't purchased our plane tickets yet, but we had the month of June 2017 was our plan no, 2016. It was June of 2016. He and I were going to go, just the two of us. And what a beautiful experience that would be. And he died. So I never got to see Germany through his eyes. And again, when I think about why did I make this movie, I think that's it's the trip I never got to take with my Uncle Alphonse.
Oh, God.
So Mom decided after her brother died, and she and Alphonse were so incredibly close. Like once they met in 1986, that was it. They were just extraordinary pen pals. I saved all my letters, which we see in the film. Tragically, my mother just made an egregious error and did not keep her letters. She was moving from her house to an apartment, and it just, these things happen. Yeah. But we went back. So Mom decided to pick up the work that Alphonse was doing regarding the Gardens of the Righteous. And we went back to Germany that summer, and we met the town historians who were helping Alphonse with all of the detailed work that you need to submit your application to Yad Vashem. It's really, really an arduous process. They submitted applications for Arthur and Paula Schmidt, as well as Rudy Fairman, and Rudy Fairman's application was not accepted. Not that we didn't have enough detailed paperwork, but he was a Nazi, and he needed to be a Nazi in order to be the mayor of the town of Wareen. And Yad Vashem has very strict guidelines as to who is permitted to be honored in the Gardens of the Righteous. So again, another thing that I feel was a calling is that, okay, well, so Yad Vashem can't celebrate Rudy Fairman, but I can. I mean, the whole town, and it's a tiny little town. It's really not even a town, Voreen. It's agricultural farmland. So it's a rural district. Yeah. And I've seen the maps and surveys of how many farms there are there. I mean, there are less than 100 homes in the town of Voreen. But you can't just put 7 kids in this town and people not know. Well,
that's what I just think the Schmidts are incredible, like saints.
It's extraordinary.
Do that. For 7 kids. Yeah.
Right. And so on the one hand, they were hiding in plain sight. And on the other hand, no, they were really pretty well hidden. And another thing that we don't go into in Unbroken at all is they were also hiding another mother and child.
Oh.
Yeah. I have
Hmm.
not been able to find accurate records around that. So it wasn't something that I felt I could put into it is a documentary, it's not fiction.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't feel that I could do that. And again, like meeting me, so we met the town historians who had been hosting my Uncle Alphonse, and they had a surprise for mom and me. And also my sister came on that trip, and my father came on that trip. And what's really interesting about that is my parents had been divorced already for over 20 years.
Hmm.
But my mom really felt that she needed to invite my dad because he had been so much a part of this conversation at the
Yeah.
reunion and all of it. And we invited my dad's wife also, but she decided not to come. And my brother at the time wasn't able to join us. He had some health issues that prevented him from flying. And
Hmm.
the town historians, Herbert and Marla Schuler, had a surprise for us. They invited a descendant of Arthur Schmidt to come and meet us.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was it. That was it. I never felt it was my story to tell. I always felt it was my mother's or my aunts and uncle. And that moment was just a watershed moment, particularly because it was the reverse shot of the story. It wasn't just, oh, this happened to our family and let me share this with the world. No, it was, oh my gosh, if his grandparents had been caught, he wouldn't be here either. And when I saw it through that lens,
Yeah.
I literally made a sacred vow to myself to make a movie, and I wasn't going to stop until it was finished. So I think the naivete of being a first time filmmaker, like now that I know what it takes to make a major motion picture, is like, oh my God. But I also didn't set out to make a major motion picture. I set out to do something for my family. This
Hmm.
was for my family. I
Yeah.
set out to make this for my children. I set out to make this for my cousins and everything like that. But it really was the reverse shot that I think gave me so much permission to just go down and take these deep dives. And I must give so much credit to two professors in particular at UCLA. One is Vincent Brooke, who you got to meet when we were
Hmm.
at Dances with Films together. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I came back, so I was in between my second and third year of graduate school, and I came back to campus after this experience, and I started pounding on the documentary professor's door saying, look, I know I'm a theater kid, but I've got to take your documentary classes. Please, will you help me? And so Vince was my first meeting. He was so enthusiastic and so supportive, and he also really helped me kind of refine questions. What are
Hmm.
the kinds of questions that you want to examine and explore? And he introduced me to Christy Guevara Flanagan, an extraordinary filmmaker in her own right, teaching at
Hmm.
UCLA. And there just wouldn't be a film without Christy. She just really, really held my hand in a very baptism by fire way. She didn't do stuff for me, and she didn't let me get away with not being able to do what everybody else in the class was doing. But I just had to learn it really, really fast. And she did have empathy and compassion for my total lack of knowledge about cameras and anything technical whatsoever. So that class was 30 weeks long. And the first 10 weeks, Christy taught. The second 10 weeks, Kathy Wang taught, another incredible documentary filmmaker. And Kathy's the one who made me be in the movie. I was not going to be in the movie. I was very concerned about, as an actor, being performative. I was really nervous about putting myself in the film and it becoming somewhat of a vanity project. Like I just didn't want to go there at all. And
Sure.
Kathy just, and the whole class actually also, they were like, you have to be in the movie. So I was like, well, I'll try. And if I don't like it, I'm yanking it out. And it it was definitely the right decision. I think it was actually easier to direct being in it than had I not been in it. There's so much imposter syndrome when it's your first time.
Hmm.
And being in it, it just kind of, directing became quite organic. Whereas had I only been on the other side of the camera, I think I would have been worried that I wasn't directing properly, or I wasn't, like, what am I missing? What am I not doing?
Mm-hmm.
And so just being a part of the process and kind of being observational about myself in a way that I just let myself not wear makeup and, you know, I knew enough with continuity to try and just pick three outfits and just wear the same three outfits, so that I would
Yeah.
be able to edit well.
Mm.
So I did give myself a wardrobe. Maybe that's the actor part of me, but I just knew enough about editing to say, give yourself a wardrobe so that you can really play with the cuts.
Yeah.
And I think my editors were
I
grateful
think,
that I followed.
yeah, and that's really, I know how difficult it is to be. I mean, I'm always grateful because I'm an editor that people agree to do documentaries, but I don't want to be a document, and I mean, I think it's a real challenge to put yourself in. I know that, but I also think that you feel so much love in the film. And I think that has a lot to do with, well, the way your family is, but also with you being there and engaging with everyone. And, you just you feel like they've all known each other all these years, that it's not
Oh,
a reunion. Yeah, it's
I love that.
beautiful.
I
Yeah.
love that. Oh, I'm so touched that you said that. Thank you.
No, it's absolutely true. And another thing that I'll never forget is when your mother says that the good always outweighs the evil.
Yeah. I think that's something that we have to remember today. We're going through such a difficult, polarizing time, not just in America, but globally. And
Yes.
it is so incumbent upon all of us to remember the virtue of hope.
Mm-hmm.
And she's such a glass half full kind of person that I I just feel very lucky that that's the kind of mom I have, because she's
Yeah.
taught it to me. And yeah, she's just, oh, she's just
Yeah.
such an eloquent speaker. I love it when I get to hear her speak formally. And I wish I could speak as eloquently as she does. Very
Yeah.
extemporaneously. She just nails it over and over again.
And what did she say when you said, "Well, I'm going to film you getting your hair done"?
Uh, well, that was really to get her comfortable.
Oh,
So, so yes, she does speak beautifully, but
yeah.
when she does speak, and you see her in the film, it is formal and elegant and all those things. But
Uh-huh.
on camera, she's a little too performative. So she's a dancer. She's a celebrated choreographer here in Chicago. She's an amazing dancer, and and she uses a wheelchair. And so what's really incredible about this chapter of her life is, okay, I have to just tell this story, I guess. So my mom was 44 when she had a spinal cord injury. She was a
Oh,
great skier, wonderful skier and dancer. She was always very athletic, always. And so she had a spinal cord injury, which severed her spine, and she is a quadriplegic. And she's one of the
oh.
most high functioning quadriplegics you'll ever meet. She drives her own car, she does all kinds of things.
Mm.
Um, so where was I going with this? So
The hair,
the
hair,
hair.
hair.
Okay. So, but she's not an actress.
Mm-hmm.
So when she's on camera, she's really uncomfortable and she gets very performative. So that's why in the movie we play Scrabble, we're looking through photo albums,
Mm.
um, and I we had just performed. She had just performed the night before her shoot day. She had performed a beautiful multi-generational piece of choreography that she choreographed that was her. She cast somebody. I used to be a professional dancer. I really haven't danced for a while. And but the second dancer in the piece really represented me and my generation. I don't know if it represented Beth, her daughter, but at least that generation. But my niece, Taylor, is, you know, a spectacular professional dancer. She just, as a matter of fact, played Velma Kelly on the national tour of Chicago. So she choreographed this piece for all three of them, and I did film it. It's not in the film, but I did film it because I was in town getting ready for these shoots. And so the next day, and we had her hair done for that dance piece. It was out in Oak Park, here in Chicago. And the next day, I said, "What do you want to do?" And she said, "Well, I really wanted my hair for this shoot today. I want my hair to look like it did yesterday for the dance piece." I was like, "Okay,
Oh.
let's go do your hair." So we just followed her in the bathroom. I mean, I had to trick her. She didn't know that that was going to be the interview.
That was
Yeah,
smart. She
yeah,
wasn't performative. She was very
right.
conversational. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that again, it's on the cutting room floor, as you know, that happens. But it is the very first time in my life that I've ever heard her call herself a Holocaust survivor.
Mm.
Never called herself a Holocaust survivor. And that day was the first time she called herself one. And I think the take that we have in the bathroom, I mean, that where I'm doing her hair, but this take that we have that's on the cutting room floor, like I just lost it. I just burst into tears because I realized what she had done, what she had said. And so I said, "Mom, do you realize that this is the first time you've ever called yourself that?" Because she also never really took ownership of her story.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. What did
Mhm.
she say? How did she react when you pointed that out to her?
I think it was just kind of like a moment of reflection and a moment of, I guess you're right. She always felt that because her mother, Lena, was murdered at Auschwitz, and because she was never in a concentration camp, didn't have a tattoo, she
Uh-huh.
didn't feel like she could kind of, I want to find a nice way to say this. I don't know the nice, but she never felt that
She
she
could
could.
claim that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She felt that so many other people had worse atrocities, were persecuted far more than she was. And I think the trip that we took in the summer of 2017, mom, dad, mom, and my sister and I, we really learned how incredibly persecuted all of them were. And certainly through the film and all the research that we've done with Unbroken, there's just no question about how atrocious their lives were, and and how persecuted they all were, and even
Mhm.
after the war. You know, that scene where they're crossing from, um, I guess, one section of the country to another, and Ruth says, uh, you know, they're still hunting Jews. I mean, this is after liberation. They're trying to get south to get down to Interstorf.
Mhm.
Um, it's just, it's just eerie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it certainly doesn't look like a first-time filmmaker. And you must have an incredible team working together.
This team, I mean, if there's one thing that I will give myself credit for, it's that just hire the smartest people you know, hire people
Yeah.
that know so much more than you do. And I was so lucky with all the different editors we had along the way. So I started out our first, and it's fun to talk about editing with you, Kate. Our very first editor for at UCLA, Christy did allow me to hire an editor in my third quarter of class because I was starring in a play. I had to finish my thesis. Like there was just no way I was going to be able to edit my scenes to graduate from UCLA. So she allowed me to hire an editor. And and one of the editors I hired was Natalie Tapino, who cut the post-it note scene.
Oh.
I, am I getting that right? I think, or a version of that or
Hmm.
something. There was a
Yeah.
version of that. And and so Natalie was my first hire, and then once we had footage, at some point, sometime along the way, I hired Hanadi Elian, who was a classmate of mine at UCLA, and she really put together our very first assembly. She taught me how to watch footage. She and I sat down for 6 weeks from 10 to 4 every single day, and she taught me how to watch footage and log it and tag it and create all the selects. So I'm so grateful to Hanadi. And we knew that she was never going to be the lead editor because she went on to, she had to move and go teach at, I think she's still at Emerson or Emory teaching, editing or directing. I think she's teaching and directing. She's a beautiful director. And she also insisted that I hire an assistant editor for her.
Yeah.
So, okay, if that's the thing that we're supposed to do. So we hired Leah Leonard, and Leah is just an amazing person. As a matter of fact, she still comes to events. We met Leah actually at Dances with Films. And so Leah just does all the things that an amazing assistant editor does. And so she was our assistant editor from start to finish. So once Hanadi created her first assembly, and then I was given the task, okay, now I have to find a lead editor. I had seen a film that I just loved, and I reached out to that editor, and she wasn't available, but she had an associate who was. So that was Dina Gutman. And Dina did an amazing job of so many things, of really helping us create our first rough cut and second rough cut and third rough cut. And Dina, I really credit Dina for so much of the research and of the archival material. Like that, absolutely, Dina was at the forefront of all of that. And we had many other researchers as well, but Dina did an amazing job. And she really created something beautiful. But she had another project to move on to. So she left the team and she said, "You're going to be fine. Don't worry. You just need a finishing editor." And I was like, "I don't know. I don't think so." So I had reached out to Stephen Smith at the Show Foundation and showed him whatever rough cut we had at the time. And he introduced me to an incredible producer at the Show Foundation, Amelia Hannibals. And Amelia took a look and she said, "You've got something extraordinary here, but no, you're not ready for animation and sound. You're not." I thought I was at Storylock. She said, "You're not at Storylock. You need to have another editor come in here and wrangle some stuff." And I was like, well, I kind of gave up. I've been working on this for so long, and I'm a theater maker. Like, we're used to going into rehearsal for 12 weeks and then you throw it up. Well, we were in year 4 now or something.
4 years.
Something, I don't know, it was crazy. And I said, "Well, then you find the editor." So
there you go.
That's a lot of chutzpah to say to somebody, but she did. And she delivered on a silver platter the incomparable Aaron Soffin. And Aaron and I, the first thing he did was a paper edit. And he came in and the two of us just had an immediate shorthand about what needed to happen next and how and why. And we had the most beautiful conversations about story. And, so much to the point that I've given him a co-writing credit on the film. I feel that he was that instrumental in really helping me and giving me permission to do the things that we finally did. And we also had the incredible Angus Wall come on as a consulting editor. So, Angus is like, what, the only editor to ever win back-to-back Academy Awards for editing. He won 1 year for Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and then he won for The Social Network. I'm not sure if I'm getting the order right. But Angus came in and also gave me a lot of permission to tell the story with humor, and not gallows humor, but just human behavior humor.
Yeah.
And he also gave me the permission to not lean in to it being a Holocaust story, that the story is so universal and so evergreen for any culture, any faith, any community, any people that are being persecuted. So we took the capital H of Holocaust out of the conversation for a while so that we could just live with this family and really understand where their courage came from, where their bravery came from, and how they became the only family of 7 siblings known to have survived the Holocaust together and then emigrated to this country together. And so I really give Angus so much credit for helping Aaron and me have the courage to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
surviving trauma.
Yeah.
So I remember I read somewhere where you were experiencing 9/11. And
Oh my gosh.
what?
Yeah, I just screened the film in Pelham last Thursday.
Oh,
And so a week ago last night. And Pelham is where my husband and I moved when I became pregnant with my first child. So we were in Pelham for 13 years. And of course, in 2001, 9/11 happened. And Joel and I were both on the island of Manhattan when it happened. And our kids were at home in Westchester or at school. They were at school in Westchester. And so this screening in Pelham that we had last week, I'm going to get kind of emotional thinking about it right now, but the people in the audience in Pelham, one of them was my girlfriend who was my phone call. Like if I can't get home, this is my sister's phone number. She was in the audience. And Pelham as a community, we lost several people in the towers. And one of my friends who lost her husband that day, she was in the audience. And so I found Pelham to be an extremely beautiful community that supported all of the families that were tragically dealing with the aftermath of 9/11 and losing their loved ones. And I think that 9/11 was the very first time in my life that I thought to myself, oh my gosh, a Holocaust could happen again. We just experienced it. I mean, Joel and I were in Manhattan. We were looking down Fifth Avenue, seeing the smoke. My first cousins on my dad's side of the family live on Chambers Street. They had to move, they had to move. It was so traumatic. 9/11 was so traumatic for all of us. And it was the first time that I ever really understood that there is evil out there, and that it's happening on American soil.
yeah.
So, as my marvelous acting teacher, William Esper, said to me when I came to his office one day and said, Joel and I are moving to California, we're leaving Manhattan, and we're leaving New York in tri-state area. And he said, you're defecting. You're an actress, you're defecting, you're going to California. I said, don't, I'll come back and visit. But it did affect us that much that we did move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've been taking this film to many, many, many festivals, huh?
We've been on tour for 2 years. We've been reaching audiences far and wide in the most beautiful way. Every audience is so different. I love it so much. I love going and meeting all the audiences. And gosh, I'll tell you that, like, sometimes the fanciest places with the most beautiful screening experiences don't bear the kind of fruit with an audience that you might expect. And then you go to some place that's really unassuming and you're just like sucker punched with the audience. And so I did something that I'm sure many filmmakers who are much more experienced than I am do, is I was at a screening last Monday morning, a very unassuming screening, 10:30 on a Monday morning. And yes, it's Kristallnacht, and so it was a commemorative screening. But, I've seen my movie a lot. So a friend of mine from high school met me for coffee. So I said, well, I always stay for the first 10 minutes and I always stay for the last 10 minutes. And I also love watching the movie with the audience. But, when someone from your past wants to meet up, it's really fun. And she's a super fan. She's seen the film many times in cinemas. So we went for coffee and we come back and I get on stage and the first thing the moderators said to me was, Beth, how did you feel when all of the Holocaust survivors in the audience started singing along with the movie? and I just had like egg on my face. I just
Oh,
said, oh my gosh, did I just miss one of the most alchemical, magical moments of this film's journey?
hmm.
So I just outed myself. I wasn't going to pretend that I had experienced it with them. So the first thing I asked them to do was, will all the Holocaust survivors please stand? And then I had the second generation, please stand. And then I said, are there any third generation survivors here? And there weren't. I'm like, okay, well, they're all in school or at work. Um, but then I said, I missed this. And would you indulge me, everybody? Please, could we sing together so I can at least have like a smidge of what happened? And
Mhm.
so we all sang the Shema together. It was,
Oh,
it, yeah, it was really, really, it was really beautiful, really beautiful. And then at the end of the Q&A, we sang Shehechianu together. Yeah.
that's wonderful. That's beautiful.
But I love that audiences, I've just started partnering with um, the Olga Lengel Institute. And the mission of that, of Toli, is to educate Catholic educators. So I love that our audiences really are everybody and everyone of all faiths and of all generations and races and cultures. And we're about to go overseas. So it's really, it's very rewarding.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it doesn't always extend for that amount of time and that many different audiences. I think that
I
must
mean,
be
I think
incredible.
also like what's blown me away is, we launched on Netflix last April, which is so cool. And
Very
they're-
cool.
yeah, and they're just the most amazing company because they're so collaborative. And they really allowed me to be part of the conversation about the launch date. So we picked a launch date together that had great intention. We selected Yom HaShoah, and so we ranked, and that's just unbelievable. But what I'm so surprised by and what I love so much, and yes, we have an amazing impact producer, but we are still booking brick and mortar screenings all over the place, despite the fact that we are streaming on many, many, many platforms. Because people seem to really want to come together and be in community and
Hmm.
talk about what the film offers, but also talk about the relevance for today. And I'm actually sorry to say that as each day goes by, we become more relevant.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree. Sharing it with an audience is always so meaningful.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you're still doing that.
Well, I
Great.
feel it's been a privilege and it's been an honor. And I'm very, very humbled by the reception that we've been getting. Very humbled. Um, and and it is truly the mission of the foundation of, I established a foundation called the Weber Family Arts Foundation to combat anti-Semitism, but also bigotry and hate of all kinds, but
Mm.
specifically through the arts and specifically by sharing stories of hope, because that is what my family is like. They are hopeful people. And so I set out to make a film that represented their feelings of hope. And so the mission of the foundation is to like spread fairy dust of hope. And if we can do it through the arts, awesome. And if we
Hmm.
can do it through this family's story, well, that's what we're doing.
Well, that's so beautiful. Grateful to you and your family. You really do.
Oh,
There is joy and love and hope in your film.
thank you. Thank you. We need it now more than ever.
Yeah, I agree.
Really, really do.
Well,
Thank you
this has
so
been
much.
a wonderful conversation.
Thank you for chatting with me. I love, you so much and your work and really the way that you've embraced me, Kate. It just has meant the world. Your encouragement along the way has been really remarkable. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for giving this into the world and spreading more joy and love and hope. So thank you.
We'll do it together.
Okay.
Okay.
Say hi to your mom for me.
Oh, I will. I will. I
Good.
promise. Okay. Bye for
Great.
now.
Bye-bye.